What was it like for you that first time that it kind of went live?
Well, I was quite nervous. Like my finger, I think, was quivering a little bit over the button on the mouse to, say start streaming. But we had, like you alluded to before, we actually spent several months last year testing live streaming because we were looking at making that an offering available for people who couldn't physically come to church. And there were just a few things that we hadn't quite worked out. When that first week rolled around, it was like, brush off the cobwebs, check that it all still works, and just knowing that this was now the only way the congregation was connecting. That was like, certainly, could feel the weight of responsibility.
How can you encourage people to engage in that online platform? What's some ways that they can do that and kind of, I guess, get the most out of engaging God throughout a service still when they're not present here?
That's an excellent question. I think for people, there's still a level of intentionality required. I mean, the barrier to entry is a little less. You don't have to get dressed and clean and hopefully have a shower and drive to get here, but you still need to actually get up and get out of bed, unless I suppose you can stream it in bed, watch it on your phone. I kind of likened it to, if you've ever watched Shakespeare, the first kind of 10, 15 minutes of Shakespeare, you kind of have to take the time for your ear to get used to it. Like you think, I'm not really following, but after a little while you get used to the rhythm, you get used to what feels different yet is suddenly familiar because you've taken the time to kind of acclimatise. I think for people, that first initial discomfort is enough to make them disengage. Whereas I think if people push through that, they'll actually find themselves, it's different, but God's still faithful in the middle of it.
Go over in this pocket over here towards Ryan and sort of Ada, I think. Ryan, you're kind of a music director slash kind of, I feel like oftentimes you're almost a co-worship leader, over there, like, helping call. And so for those, who are unaware, that microphone, Ryan is not just singing into his own channel and sending out tracks, but he's communicating with us in the band. He's letting us know that there's things happening and how we're going and that kind of thing. But yeah, Ryan, I just wondered if you could maybe let people in a little bit onto your preparation heading into a Sunday. What's required to come, to play the songs, to play them the way we do, to play electric guitar, to direct through the band and that sort of stuff. What does that look like for you? What's kind of like a typical preparation look like for you during the week?
It varies, I guess, from week to week, depending on what else I've got on. But I've always, I can't remember who told me, it was someone involved in our church a long time ago said, and I've always tried to do that, if I can play without the music, without focusing on having sheet music there, I'm a lot more prepared. Like if I know the songs without needing to look at something, then I am I've got a better bed of preparation than if I'm having to look at sheet music. So that's, I suppose, the first part is looking at the songs, listening to the songs, learning chords and trying to remember in my head. And then from there, go into learning guitar parts, getting guitar sounds to sound really nice, setting up all that gear that comes with the deep, deep well that is electric guitar and the money we spend on it. And then also finding that time throughout the week to just be in the Word and also listening to worship. So at work, I'm lucky enough that I can sit with headphones on and just listen to YouTube and listen to worship. And I love listening to other churches' streams at the moment and hearing the worship they're doing, and then hearing people's albums they've put on YouTube, and just listening to worship and being involved in hearing God and what He's saying through all that, and then listening to those songs so that when I come on Sunday, I know the songs back to front, so that I can be involved with listening to God and listening to where the worship leaders are leading the songs and leading the service and taking it from there, and then also interacting with pastors as they come up to speak. And when it was congregation, it's also interacting with the congregation and hearing where they're leading songs as well. It's a big balance of everyone leading everyone.
Yeah,
listening to God.
Yes. Yeah, and I think we've all missed that. Hey, like we miss the people. Like, as a worship leader, you miss that. Ada, you were involved in some of our pre-records here, right? Where like, we found out that we had, a restriction of, I think it was three musicians, and we just pretty much had to set cameras and just go. So church family, you were gracious to us for those 5 weeks there or whatever, where we went through our series, and we just, all of those worship sets were recorded on the same Sunday. The amazing team, many who are here, came on, and we just did it all day, just record to get that stuff out, again, because we just didn't know what next week would look like and what the restrictions would do then. So, how was that for you, Ada? Like someone who I know, reads off the room and what God's doing in the room, and then coming to a pre-record moment where you're like, well, I don't know who's out there, but I'm just gonna worship.
Yeah, the first pre-record for the Sunday service, I thought it went horribly, and I just came home and I was like, my spontaneous was off. Like it just wasn't. I just was completely. It was just wrong or something. I was like, I just didn't do it good, and I was even going to message you and be like, look, you really don't have to use this. I'm not offended. Like, I don't need to be on a Sunday service, Nick. And then I thought maybe you didn't use it, like, because you swapped the order around of the pre-record. The next week I was like, I don't know about this. And so it was a different pre-record, and then which really suited that week. So I was glad, and I was like, okay, so we must have left it. But then the week after, it was the pre-record was played through, and I think I was blown away. I don't even know how to word this, like by the fact that time is not linear to God. Like he knew the spontaneous stuff, which to me felt like at the time, but just sat so perfectly with the service and with that day and with it all seemed to come together and be right.
Yeah.
And I know you guys probably were smart and like put the right ones there too, but with like hearing from God as well. But that was a real, that I just learned from that, I guess, that, the wisdom to discern and have more faith that the things I'm singing out might not be played until a few weeks later on YouTube. Like someone might play it back, and that's amazing that God's in control of what we sing, and it's time. It can still be timely for a multiple amount of time zones, like a sci-fi interdimensional thing.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Exactly how I would explain it too.
Yeah.
No, it's so great. But I think it really does draw on that importance of, coming in and leading worship. We can't do that if at home we're not comfortable with no audience. Yeah. And that I guess prepares us. And, you hear it said all the time, like you can't pour out in public or you don't pour out in private. Yeah. And we're like, we know that. But literally, like I know for me too, I've experienced that here. Like it is strange. You've only got 3, sometimes not even 3 cameras pointing at you in a massive auditorium, and you've just got to go, okay, God, like it's just me and you, just like it would be at home. And so how can you encourage people as well who are trying to maybe when there is spontaneous, let's go there, let's talk about it. When there's spontaneous going on and maybe it's not necessarily floating their boat, or maybe they're like, what can they do to not disengage in that moment? What can they do when someone is just singing out and we love to explore, we love to make it real time, to be like, okay, God, in this moment, what are you saying, and trying to just carefully, humbly walk one step after the other to sing out what we feel like he might be saying. How can you encourage people to receive that on the other end? Like what do you do if someone's singing out? Because I've chased this kind of thing, I am wanting to like cheer on anyone who's doing spontaneous. And there's been some churches that I've led at where the congregation like they are more excited for the spontaneous than the actual song. It's like they're waiting for you to get to the prophetic bit where we're in faith trying to hear what God's saying for now. And they're like, when you do that, they're like, yeah, like you can hear them. So I've come from that background, and I've tried to adopt that attitude for myself, and going
thinking through it in faith and looking at it in faith and praying through it and thanking God as it's happening and trying to receive it and praying, go, God, what, like, you know, why are you like wanting me to hear this today? You know what I mean? And receive it and let it take me deeper into that abiding and that deeper worship where he's right here and he's in us and he's speaking to us and he's leading and he's moving, and it's that whole mystery. But I also like that it brings out that it can sometimes bring that discontentment, like, which I was listening to a podcast, and that can be a gift, like when you feel uncomfortable a little bit, like because it pushes you, or like dissatisfaction, it can push you into what really satisfies. So sometimes taking that as a gift of like, this is something different, and I want to experience it. God, help me. Like, I'm just a child. What are you saying? What are you feeling? Just take me deeper into this, and just grab his hand and let him take you, I think.
Yeah. So it takes a real openness, hey?
Yeah.
An openness, vulnerability, which I guess as a Christian, you never like get tired of that. You never arrive. You're never like at the point, or I don't think you should anyway. I feel like in our faith, like we're going from glory to glory, and we're being led by our amazing shepherd and master, like into, you know, new things, you know, that the Lord's doing a new thing. And so I think just to encourage people who maybe are used to worship looking a certain way, to in these moments to just, as you said, to just open up and say, Lord, I'm just take me by the hand and I'm going to go with this. And I remember also, you know, at different times going, oh, like, I feel like that person's, you know, like singing a song just for themselves because it's not reflecting what's going on in me. And I really felt like the Lord kind of stopped me there and said, yeah, but it's for someone else, you know, and in the body that we are, like we said, with signing in online and saying your hellos in the morning and just being a part, being the grace that is the church, you know, with one another, that, you know, sometimes, you know, someone is singing something that is for the person in Kenya that needed to just hear today that they're loved, and we could be so quick to kind of cut off and separate. And so, yeah, I think just as a church, if we're humble, if we're open, if we're authentic, it'll keep us in good stead. So good. Thanks for that. I'm going to kind of talk to our strings department, as I would say, or some of, you know, we have an amazing strings crew here, and yeah, many of them.
We need more.
Yeah, we need more.
Amen.
But yeah, I love it. I love strings. People have told me that they're the instruments in heaven. Kind of like people always claim that rugby is the game played in heaven. I'm sure Pastor John would say that rugby is the game played in heaven. But yeah, no, just first of all, thanks to you both. You know, when we are limited in numbers and restricted, the strings just, you know, add something so awesome to the dynamic. I know you both have kind of come from classical backgrounds and, you know, through symphony orchestras and that kind of thing. Jumping into worship, right? You guys are in worship room where it's like, you know, spontaneity on steroids, I guess. Like, it's just, let's go where we feel like we're being led. What have you had to do to jump out of being a classical kind of musician, or how do you channel that side and then move into the side of just worship and flowing and yeah?
Yeah, I think a big thing of it is not overcomplicating it. Like, and it's just coming with just your hands open out and be like, God, I'm here. Use what you want. I'm your tool. And it's not like, what can I do as a musician, as somebody who actually does this in real life as a job? You know, there's so many things that I could make it sound more special or use techniques and things like that. But I think it's just coming open to God and being really humble about it and just saying, you know, it's not about what I want to do. It's not about what I can do, but you're using me. So just, you know, just lead me in the moment. And I think it's just being humble and allowing God to use you then just makes all the difference, because then it just takes away all the unnecessary thoughts and even the noise that it can end up being sometimes. And I think just strips back to what's really important and your priorities of just adoration with Him and just having a relationship and a moment with Him. And I think just stewarding what you have to offer is the biggest thing.
Absolutely. I would also say I think in any endeavour, true focus requires restraint. And so when it comes to this world of classical music and, you know, like you said, endless symphonies and that sort of, that type of music that Grace and I have marinated in for years. But when it comes to worship, we're here to focus on the one King, to focus and behold him, and all of the other stuff needs to be not distraction, and all of the other notes and fancy technique needs to be out of the way to clear the path for him. And then any music and any melodies and any harmonies, any effects that we would use in our worship should only be there to draw people's focus to him, to draw their attention to his character, and really to kind of carve the path. And that's to me where I would say it's just that issue of focus.
I think it's also a difference of where the focus, like we were saying about the focus, like a lot of classical music is so beautiful. It's got this richness, it's got this depth, it's got all these layers. But I think what it's at is some pieces are trying to show the technicality of the player or the composer's thought and heart behind it. And that's really cool. But I think the difference in worship is that we're not here to be like, look at how amazing we are. We're here because we want to worship with God. We want to engage with him. We want a relationship with him. And so I think when that focus shifts of, it's not about what can I do, what can I show off? It's like, no, God, we're here to be with you. And then suddenly you can just see things in a totally different light. And it was like a big learning curve for me initially, you know, stepping into worship team initially, being like, I don't know how to improvise, like being like, oh, hey guys, where's the music? And they're like, oh, we use chord charts maybe. And I was like, pardon? Yep. And then so it's just been such a big journey, and God's been so like amazing the way he is, and just gracious in how he's even taken me through that journey of using what was the little seed that I never thought I would have used if you asked me 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
And now it's the main thing, and actually I find it more comfortable to worship in that way, just because it's just been such a faith journey, and you're just taking that step going, God, I'm trusting in you. I want to follow where you're taking me, but he makes all of your negatives to positives, and he makes the positives even better. So, you know, when you've just got that, there's nothing that can go wrong sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
And even what you were saying about attention, all of that. Well, whether it's classical music or you're coming from a band background or any genre of music, the difference between that and what we do here on a Sunday is keeping the attention on him and keeping it off of ourselves. And that's the thing, is most other music is designed to put the attention on the person creating the music. And ours is the exact opposite brief, you know.
Yeah, and I know that from both of you, you know, like I know the hours that you practice, I know that you put thought into your parts, knowing just what you know and your backgrounds, and knowing where your instruments sit, you know, in different songs. And so you'll chat, and you'll even maybe meet up and workshop, you know, different things if we're doing something, you know, specific, which is awesome. And yeah, thank you for doing that. Thank you. I know that sometimes those moments blow out into worship sessions, you know, for you guys, and it's like, whoa, thank you, Lord, you know. But definitely have seen you guys move from the satisfaction being like about the music, and the satisfaction being engagement with him and what he does, you know, in the moment. Sorry, you're going to say something?
No, just on that. Whenever Grace and I do sit there in a worship rehearsal and decide, okay, will you play this line here, and then if I add it in this part of music, we always we only ever do that in order to highlight a certain lyric, a certain theme of the song, again, it's just drawing attention back. So it's just using and it's the same as what any of us in any capacity here do, is using the skills to draw attention to him. It's just the vessel
that we use to draw attention to it. And it's been so great, I think, as instruments as colour that aren't sort of the key part of the band, but it's been a lot of us just looking at things and going, what's the important part? What do we want to draw to? And when we've had these sessions of just worshipping, we've done some with Sanctuary Co-Boys, with Jacob and Alex as well, where we just originally was, let's just get together and worship, maybe figure something out. And we didn't actually end up figuring anything out at all. We probably spent 2 hours of just ended up being worship on a spontaneous one key. Yeah. And we just went where God wanted us to go. And it was just so great, because it just shows, you know, what it's like to actually live through worship. You know, the music is just the vessel that we're using to send our adoration to him. So
I love that. Cool. Well, yeah, I might jump to the Sanctuary Co boys, and I remember that, you know, we sent out these kits to different homes to be like, hey, you know, we're going to have to pre-record, and you know, so we dropped one over to your guys' house. But, you know, we have a lot of like different, obviously organized events here through. It's a large church, and so you guys help with worship with youth and with young adults and that kind of thing as well. And we were streaming those things. But yeah, I love, Grace, how you mentioned just that time where I think you guys you just had your own worship room basically at your house. It wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't, and it just kind of, I love that. Where did worship start for you guys? When did you start like getting into worship?
Oh, this is meant to be a secret. But we, back in grade 11, we went to the same school and we may or may not have skipped a couple of classes.
Yep.
No, we definitely didn't do that. Not chemistry, according to Alex. But yeah, we'd meet up and just began worshiping. I think at the time I'd only just come to KBC at the time, and it was just something that we both connected over. And yeah, I think a lot of that grew, that culture of worship between us. It was just something that was really special, and we used to do that all the time after school. We started taking on in the Christian group at school. We ran worship afternoons there, and ran it for camps as well for school, and then that kind of filtered over into church. So now we get to do it at home all the time. So we've been building this for a long time. So yeah, it's an awesome opportunity to be able to use that to I guess have that play out on these different platforms of opportunity, and just see where God's used those seeds that were planted all the way back in 2015 when we first both found out that we were both Christian in the same school, even though we'd been going to the same school for 4 years at that time. Yeah, and we're like, oh, you're a Christian? What? That's amazing. Yeah. And so we kind of grew from there, which is amazing. Yeah.
So when we dropped that kid over to your house and we're like, can you lead worship from your home? That wasn't a new thing for you guys.
It's not a new thing.
Which
I've been doing that for a long time.
Is awesome, and yeah, that definitely comes through, I think, in the way you guys both, lead worship in the ways that you do. And I was jumped on last night to the young adult, stream again, different living room, but just that same sort of heart, same, reflective of the values we have here. So yeah, I love it. I think you guys, I get excited as some of the younger members of our team, knowing that, in Timothy, it talks about, setting an example, not letting people look down on you because you're young, but actually setting an example in faith. And I think that you guys do that in worship. So, it's just so awesome to see. What do you reckon's one thing you've learnt in this, time of church online and of doing worship in this way?
Definitely you got to be flexible because it's going to look different wherever you are. The main thing, when we got that set dropped over at our house, we can lead worship, but the production stuff's not really. So we had to upskill a little bit in setting the whole thing up. And I had to learn how to set up a mic stand, So yeah, you got to be flexible. You learn a lot of things, but getting all the production stuff working and then playing without a congregation is something you've got to get used to. Worshiping in your house is something different because you've got all your family sitting right next to you. And I love my mum and dad, but sometimes it's a bit weird to work, you know what I mean? But in the comfort of church, when you've got everyone around you, it's a little bit different. But suddenly, like Ada was talking about, when you're pushed into the uncomfortability of the lounge room and everyone can hear your voice and stuff like that, you just got to be a bit more flexible to step out of your comfort zone. Yeah.
And I think it's one of those good moments, good each agrees. Joe and I often talk about those moments where there's a lot in scripture and there's a lot that we, sometimes when we go to either preach into it or speak it from the front, whether it's a worship intro or something, and you're like, well, it's going to hurt a little bit, but it's that way of just saying, hey guys, there's some things in here that it's just good for us as believers, and I agree. I think that being thrust into that environment of hey, I've got to deal with whatever is getting in the way between me and you in my own home and in this space and this environment. I think the Lord is really hungry for our homes to look like the stage, for our homes to look like the sanctuaries that we come into in worship, and not to separate it, not to set it apart, in that way. So, I think that's been good. Do you have any tips for people, again, as we're just being kind of candid here and that sort of thing? Do you have any tips for people to worship in that way? I feel uncomfortable. I remember as youth pastor, we'd go to Jan Camp, and on the Saturday morning, everyone would be looking around. It's wait, where are the dark lights? And, we're having to worship under a tent, and I don't, I'm comfortable lifting my hands when no one can see me, but when people can see me, what are some tips?
I think the biggest thing that I felt like the Lord was saying to me was, in this whole time, that the waiting is not passive. that waiting on him is not passive, it's actually an active engagement. And I've got to make a choice. I've got to make that intentionality to actually posture my heart before him. And I love what our young adult pastor, Nick Lloyd, he said it a while ago, but he said maybe sometimes we've actually confused the church with buildings, not temples. And the fact that if we're the temple of the Holy Spirit, God lives in us, He abides in us. And so I've actually got to make a choice every Sunday when I click onto that YouTube stream. I've actually got to make a choice to posture my heart and understand that worship isn't just a genre of music, but it's actually a position of my heart that I have to assume. And so I think just coming in with that intentionality and that, like we've talked about before, but just that openness and being like, God, I want to hear you. I want to hear you in this moment. I don't want to sing songs about you and pretend that you're not actually here with me as I worship and engage with you. And so, just for anyone who's watching right now, just encourage you to make that step with intentionality and do what you need to do in your own homes as well to make that environment as conducive to that as possible. If that's hitting off the lights or just making sure that you can have that environment around you. If that means standing up or even beginning. I loved, there was one week I think when Pastor Scott McKinnon, sorry, I'm professional. He said, would you begin just with joining me and lifting your hands? And even when we did that was super freeing for me, because maybe sometimes we kind of get into rhythms at home where we've done church this one way, and so now we're used to everyone just sitting down in the same place at the couch, and just changing it up and being flexible to that is really important. So
so great. And just a massive thanks to you both for the hours. I think there was one week there where you were potentially on all of the things because we were with the COVID restrictions. We knew that we couldn't invite the entire worship community to be a part of it. We had to start small and grow from there. And you guys really were flexible and jumped on that. So thanks heaps for helping us just put worship out to our young people and to the congregation at large. Really appreciate it.
I think it was Judy one week basically got on the floor and Sean put the camera back through and up into the lights, and basically you almost get this halo with the person that was worshiping with their hands up, and it was just amazing. Like, it was exactly what was happening in the room. But if she hadn't gone, I'm just gonna follow that. I'm gonna get on the ground basically and point a camera at this, and this is what God is doing right now. And I think that's what I love about doing this job, is that you get to do that sometimes with lights. Like, lights is a very interesting thing because it has to be both practical. Like, if you don't have the lights, you can't see anything on the camera.
Yep.
So I have to think about how much light we put on it. But once you do that, oftentimes we're trying to think about the colours aren't just, hey, let's try a different colour for now. We actually put some thought into what is the message that is trying to come through this song. Is it joy? Is it contemplation? Is it praise? Is it fast? Is it slow? And that's what we try to convey through the lighting as well.